Iran just fired the Sejjil ballistic missile at Israel for the first time in this war. As one of the most serious weapons in Iran's entire arsenal, it is traditionally reserved for final stage escalation. They call it the dancing missile, not because of its appearance, but because of what it does to missile defense systems. During last summer's conflict, fragments from a single Sejjil warhead reached Israeli soil after the Arrow system failed to neutralize it fully. Now it has returned in significant volume, at the worst possible moment. On Sunday, March 15th, the 54th wave of Operation True Promise 4 escalated, causing sirens to go off across more than 140 locations in Israel. From Tel Aviv to Herzliya to the southern suburbs, missile debris struck a residential building used by the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. The debut of this powerful weapon occurred less than 24 hours after U.S. officials reported that Israel is running critically low on the interceptors built to stop exactly this kind of threat. The Sejjil is not a conventional ballistic missile. It is a medium-range, solid-fueled, two-stage weapon that Iran designed and built entirely on its own. Most people hear ballistic missile and picture a weapon flying in one large, predictable arc that is easily trackable by a modern defense shield. However, the Sejjil does not work that way. Its warhead carries a maneuverable re-entry vehicle. As it descends at speeds above Mach 5, it does not follow a straight path. Instead, it shifts direction unpredictably. This is why it is nicknamed the dancing missile. A standard interceptor like the Arrow calculates where a warhead will land and sends a kill vehicle to that specific point. When the landing point changes every fraction of a second, that calculation falls apart. The only remaining option is to fire multiple interceptors in a spread pattern and hope one connects, which burns through stockpiles rapidly. There's a second layer to this threat. The Sejjil runs on solid fuel. This means it sits fully loaded on a mobile launcher and is ready to fire in minutes. There are no fueling trucks or lengthy preparations visible to satellites. Iran has stated that from the city of Natanz, the Sejjil can reach Tel Aviv in under 7 minutes from ignition to impact. Because it launches from trucks rather than fixed sites, the system survives even when bases and facilities are destroyed. The coalition has hit over 7,600 targets inside Iran since February 28th. Yet the Sejjil does not depend on that fixed infrastructure. Iranian engineers have also reportedly coated the missile in radar-absorbent material to shrink its radar cross-section, making it harder to track during descent. This creates a dual-layer problem where detection and interception are degraded simultaneously. Israel's Arrow 3, which engages threats outside the atmosphere using hit-to-kill technology, depends on precise tracking. A reduced radar signature shortens the detection window and compresses the time available to launch an intercept. The Arrow 2, which engages targets inside the atmosphere, faces the same degradation compounded by the warhead's active maneuvering. Uzi Rubin, the former director of Israel's Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, has argued that the Sejjil appears more distinct from foreign designs than earlier Iranian systems, though open-source assessments still suggest that foreign assistance was likely during its development. Believed to have begun development in the late 1990s, it was first tested in 2008 and 2009. It reappeared in the Great Prophet 15 exercise in 2021, where analysts noted it featured upgraded guidance. While it is a mature system, it has not been publicly established if the version used in this war carries an integrated GPS and inertial navigation package. The timing of this deployment coincides with a second crisis. On Saturday, March 14th, reports sourced from U.S. officials stated that Israel had informed America it is running critically low on ballistic missile interceptors. Israel entered this war already short on Arrow-class interceptors, after expending large volumes during the June 2025 conflict. The United States fired more than 150 THAAD interceptors during that 12-day engagement alone. According to analysts, the current war's pace dwarfs that campaign. While 16 days of sustained bombardment across 54 waves has pushed the system toward a breaking point, one U.S. official described this as a situation that was expected and anticipated. These are the words of a government that watched a problem build and chose not to solve it. The same official stressed that the United States is not facing a parallel shortage, noting that they have what is needed to protect their own bases and interests. The IDF pushed back, stating there is currently no shortage of interceptors and that forces have prepared for a prolonged campaign. However, on that same night, the Israeli government approved the emergency transfer of 6 billion shekels, approximately 826 million, to the Defense Ministry for urgent procurement. This is not the behavior of a government that considers its stockpiles adequate. It is the behavior of a government writing emergency checks at midnight. Every Arrow 3 interceptor costs several $1 million per unit and takes significant time to replace. Production lines are not designed for wartime surge output. A maneuverable warhead that requires multiple interceptor shots per inbound missile collapses the entire cost-exchange ratio. If Iran fires one Sejjil and Israel burns 3 interceptors trying to stop it, the deficit accelerates faster than any factory can fill it. Furthermore, it has been confirmed that Iran has begun equipping its ballistic missiles with cluster munitions. Israeli officials say roughly half of the projectiles recently launched have been cluster munitions, with warheads dispersing 20 to 24 bomblets. Systems like Iron Dome are not designed to neutralize that entire spread. At least 3 people have been killed by these weapons, including 2 at a construction site in central Israel. 12 people total have been killed by ballistic missile strikes during this war. The high-altitude interceptors are under severe strain, and Iran's newest weapon is engineered to worsen that strain by demanding more resources per engagement. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated on March 13th that Iran's ballistic missile production capacity has been functionally defeated. The IDF claims over 7,600 strikes inside Iran since February 28th, alongside 100 in Lebanon. Human rights organizations report that at least 4,900 people have been killed in the first 14 days of the war. Despite this volume of destruction, Iran has launched 54 waves, including the debut of its most technologically advanced missile. This weapon requires precision, solid fuel manufacturing, and sophisticated guidance assembly. If production were truly defeated, this weapon should not exist on the battlefield. This suggests either that the assessment was premature, or that Iran is reaching into its strategic reserves of approximately 2,500 missiles. The Sejjil was deliberately withheld for the first 53 waves, a choice that signals strategic patience. On the Israeli side, Defense Minister Israel Katz described the conflict as entering a decisive stage, declaring that Iran would be met with unyielding resolve. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has called retaliation a duty and a legitimate right. Both governments are projecting total resolve and inevitable victory, but both cannot be correct. Meanwhile, the consequences are radiating outward. Oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz have been disrupted, and Maersk has suspended crossings. Shipping insurers are declining to write policies for Gulf transit, and drone strikes recently forced temporary airport suspensions near Dubai. Energy markets are in turmoil. The plan from America and Tel Aviv was to use air superiority to force a political collapse, but the reality is a nation absorbing damage and continuing to launch from mobile platforms. Israel's plan for layered interception is under pressure from warheads designed to defeat its math and cluster munitions, scattering below the interception floor. The dancing missile is now airborne, and the question remains how many more waves this conflict can sustain before the resources run out entirely.